Hey everyone, I am wanting to show you how to do a granny square. I'm choosing the granny square for a couple of reasons. You will learn how to work in the round, and also the granny stitch, which you'll use in the granny square, is a little bit easier because of where you stitch into. So let's just go ahead and get started, and I'll explain things along the way. There's two different ways a few different ways you can start your round. I'm going to show you the most traditional way, and this way is also the most sturdy way. So the safest as far as if yours wear and tear, it will stand strong. So I'm going to put a slip knot on my hook, and then I'm going to chain 4 times. Alright, so now I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to insert the hook into the very first chain. And I'm going to yarn over and draw up a loop, but instead of doing a single crochet here, I'm going to do a slip stitch, which means I'm going to take that loop I just drew up and bring it through the loop that was already on my hook. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a circle, if you can see that. From here, I want to do double stitches, so I'm going to chain up 2. Okay, so instead of working into my chain like we did when we did rows, I'm going to work in actually the center of this circle. So I'm going to yarn over, put my hook through the center, and I also am keeping the tail of this yarn with the chain. I'm going to yarn over again, draw up a loop. I have 3 loops. I'm going to pull through 2 and pull through the next 2. You'll see it they're kind of separate, the stitch from the chain, so I just will scoot it over. So the next thing I'm going to do is another one. So I'm going to yarn over, put the hook through the center, draw up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now I have a chain and 2 stitches. I'm going to go for 1 more stitch because I'm not going to count this chain as a stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, go through the center, pull up a loop, and I'm going to double crochet. Now, a granny stitch is technically a cluster of 3 double crochets stitched into a space. So they're not stitched into a stitch. I hope that makes sense. It will make more sense once I get more rows going. So because this is technically a granny stitch here, there's 3 double crochets together, I'm going to make a corner for my square. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to chain 3 times. Now sometimes I chain 2, but I really want to make sure I have a 90-degree corner today, so I'm going to chain 3 times. Then I'm going to yarn over, go through the center of this circle, keeping that tail intact, and then I drew up a loop. It's hard to see because that chain made it twirl around a bit, but I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to go through 2 and then go through the second 2. All right, so I am going to go ahead and do 2 more double crochets through here. Okay, so now I have another set of 3 double crochets. That's a granny stitch. I am going to now make 3 chains to make another corner. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to do that all over again. I am still keeping this tail in line with this chain, and that will come in handy here in a little bit. That's my first one in this cluster. Okay. So I know I went fast there, but I want to show you I have 3 3 stitches. That is in one cluster, and that is one granny stitch. So I just did 3 chains, and because I want to make this a square, I am going to do one more granny cluster right here. If you're not able to keep your tail along with the chain, it will be okay. I like to thread it through later if I can't. So I'm kind of done with the tail. I'm going to drop it. I'm going to chain 3 times because this is what's going to make your corner. And then I'm going to find the first stitch of this cluster. So if you're looking at it, here is a post of this is the post. And on top, if you look, those 2 are the stitches. That's the front loop and the back loop. So this stitch goes with this post. This stitch goes with this post. And this stitch goes with this post. So I am going to go into right here. I'm going to go under both of those. Should be a V or a heart shape on your hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through a loop, but we're going to do one of those slip stitches. So I'm going to take the loop I just drew up and bring it through like that. Okay, so this is your first round. It should resemble a square like. So now what we're going to do is 2 more chains. Now actually I'm going to do 3 here because I want it to include a space. So because I'm at the end, there's 2 things you can do. You can crochet, keep going to the left, which is what I'm going to do, or you can flip your work over and work directly into there. So bear with me here. I am going to work into this corner here. Instead of doing 2, I did 3 so I'd have a little more space. But I am going to yarn over and work into the space over here. And I'm going to do 3 double crochets into this space, not into a stitch, but into this corner space. All right, so the first couple rows are kind of confusing just because sometimes you might not know what a corner is and what isn't a corner. But we are at a corner, so I'm gonna chain 3 times. And then I'm going to work again into that same space, but instead of being on this side of the square, we're being on this side of the square. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3 double crochet. The ease of a granny square is once you get the rhythm of it, because you're not having to stitch into the stitches, it goes very fast, okay? So getting past the first couple rows is going to be the hardest part. So now, some people like to put a chain here, but I kind of like a little bit tighter stitches, so I'm not going to. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to go directly into here to make a new cluster. So yarn over, go through this space, pull through 2, pull through 2. Okay, here's another cluster, and because this is the second row, I'm having to both build sides and corners. Where the first row we were just building corners in between. So if you noticed, we didn't put a chain in between on the sides, but we are going to chain in the corners. 3 chains. And then we're going to work again into that same space. So we're going to yarn over, drop a loop, pull through 2, pull through the other 2. All right, we are still on a side on this one now. So we're on this side. So I do not want to put a chain into this next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, and make another granny square cluster or granny stitch cluster. Okay, so now I'm at a corner. So I'm going to chain 3 and then yarn over and go into that same exact space that I was just in. Okay, so we are on a side and not a corner. So we're not going to chain, we're going to go straight in to that space. All right, I'm going to chain 3. This is my last corner. So I am going to go into this same spot here, and I'm going to make one more cluster. And if you remember, I have a chain over here. I'm not going to count the chain as a stitch, but you could. I'm sorry if I give too many options. I just want you to know there's a lot of variations. Now, this is weird because I'm not going to have you join in a stitch, but into the chain. You can really do this at any part. I still like to make it look like I joined in the chain, so I like to go in this back hump, but I think I'm just going to go into right here. So you're going to pull up a loop and then you're gonna stitch that together. That was a slip stitch, if I didn't say that properly. Okay, so those first 2 rows are the most difficult because you really have to orient yourself. After that, it's very established where the corners are and what is the sides. So it becomes much easier to do a granny square after the first 2 rows. So I am going to chain up 2. And if you notice now that I've chained, I can work directly into this, and I'm on this side of the space instead of this side of the space. I hope that makes sense, but I'm going to work directly into this space that's in front of me. So another cluster here. Okay, my yarn is getting a little tangled here. All right, so from here, we are in the middle of the flat side. So I'm not going to make a space before I go into this. I'm not going to make a chain before I go into this space. So just a yarn over and some more. Okay. So as you can see, we're at a corner. I need to fix my yarn. It's being crazy. Okay. As you can see, I am at a corner, so I need to chain. And then into that same exact space where the other corner stitch is. Okay. All right, so now we are going to have 1 in this middle space, 1 granny cluster in this middle space, no chaining here, going straight into this corner space, Okay, we're gonna chain 3 here, turn and do this side, yarn over. So the cool thing about granny squares is that you can just keep making them go forever and ever. You can also change colors on each row. I tend to like the solid color ones just so I don't have as many tails to weave in. No space, no chain here. One more cluster. I will finish this row, and you're able to always take this video and pause it as you go if that is helpful. I will also try to find some written instructions or make my own. So again, no space when we're on the side of the square. I'm sorry, no chains while we're on the side of the square. I mean no space in between the stitches. Okay, but here we're going to do a chain 3 in the corner and then start on this side of the square. All right, no chaining in between to go to that middle one. I'm having some a yarn tangle here. Alright, now I have this last corner and I want to show you how to finish up the rows. Okay. Chaining 3 for that last corner and working back into that corner space. Okay, so now I look and I'm wanting to join this cluster to this one, and there's a chain 2 here, 1, 2, and this is the stitch, and I want to work right into that stitch because I'm not counting that chain as a stitch. Okay, so let's just take a look for a second. So here's your granny square, and the good thing about granny squares is you do the granny stitches in the spaces, which makes it a slightly easier and you're able to work faster than if you're going into the actual stitch. Okay. The other perks about granny squares is that you can work them. You can go as big as you want, or you can do a bunch of small ones and get them, sew them together, kind of like a quilt. There's lots of different granny square variations. This is the traditional one. Another thing about granny squares, like I said, you can keep going in the same direction. We went in the same direction the entire time, but you can, just like rows, once you get up here, if you wanted to, you can flip it over. The back of the stitch does have a slightly different look, so it would alternate between what the front of the stitch looks like and the back. Some people find this helpful for, like, here I'm at the front of this space and not the back of it, so I, instead of stitching into this one, would stitch into this one. Some people don't care to do that. They prefer only to stitch right in front of them, so they'll flip over. I hope I'm not making it too confusing by giving you other options, but I do want you to understand that there's more than one way to crochet. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you.